Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for taking time and coming out, especially during the dinner hour. I do appreciate it. I'm Rae Perkins. I live in Albany. Been married to my husband for a very long time. We met in 1973, and he hasn't got rid of me yet. We have two fabulous children, of course. They're not children anymore. And along with their spouses, we've been blessed with 11 grandchildren. As a U.S. Senator, I take the oath to support and defend the Constitution very seriously. And so as a U.S. Senator, every bill that I vote on will always be looked at from the U.S. constitutional lens. And that's how I will look at those bills. I have several bills that are either on my website or hopefully will be up tomorrow. I'm out of time.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. So I'll go into more of that in a little bit.
All right, let's ask that first question here. What are your top priorities for Oregon at the federal level? And how would you work to deliver results for both urban and rural communities in the state?
So as I was saying, everything that I do is going to be looked at through the through the U.S. Constitution. My top priority is restoring those constitutional limits to the federal government. Most bills that I propose are not Oregon-only bills. They're going to benefit pretty much the entire United States of America. That means shrinking unconstitutional federal agencies and ending the overreach that harms both urban families in Portland and rural producers such as over here in Wasco County. Whether it's cutting federal spending that drives up costs for everyone or repealing mandates that ignore the 10th Amendment, my work in the Senate will deliver real results for Oregon and every other state. On my website, I have a bill that is already up there, and it has to do with wildfires. Right now, when there's a wildfire on federal land, the state contacts federal agencies. They have to wait for the go-ahead to send the firefighters out. My bill will give them an opportunity to immediately get out on those fires and not wait.
Time.
Okay, let's work it out, guys. We'll get a bit smoother as we go, so.
I never read the answers, so it's throwing me off because I had to get these down in 60 seconds.
You did well.
All right. We're going to start, all of us concerned about the rising cost of living. What specific actions would you take to address house care or housing affordability and healthcare and all the other fun stuff?
I'm going to go a little bit off script of what I have here. Housing affordability. Big problem is we're not able to cut our timber. It is a renewable resource. We have got to get back to opening up the forest and responsibly cut the timber instead of us bringing our wood in from Canada. It's ridiculous that we're okay with cutting wood in other countries, but we're not okay with cutting our timber. But we're okay with letting it burn up and pollute the air and kill animals. But we're not okay with cutting our own timber, which increases the tax base, which reduces the cost of housing. And that's one of the areas that I am working on. That's why my bill is important, because it also will have provisions for cutting the timber. The other thing is, again, too much regulation coming out of Washington, D.C., and that drives the cost up for everybody. The healthcare bill, there's a lady here in the audience, she pays $1,100 a month for her health insurance, and that's outrageous.
All right. Next question. Issues such as energy policy, natural resource management, and infrastructure significantly impact Oregon's economy and environment. How would you balance economic growth with environmental stewardship?
Man, we gotta talk fast. You guys have no idea. Come try this. The federal government's energy and land management policy is unconstitutional overreach, which I've already stated. I'm gonna fight to return control to the local level. We've got to stop this federal overreach. It's so unconstitutional. We have to return the control over fires, the water, energy decisions to the states where they belong. And all of the above energy strategy, hydrothermal, geothermal, nuclear, and responsibly developed resources can be done without violating the 10th Amendment. Economic growth and environmental care are not enemies when the federal government stops issuing one-size-fits-all mandates that hurt rural economies in every state and here in Oregon, that you all feel.
Okay. This is an interesting one. How will you work across party lines to get things done in today's highly divided political environment?
Wow. I'm not a career politician. I'm a Main Street American. And if I were to ask you a question that I don't have time to ask, that we all want virtually the same things, 99.99% of us are going to agree on it. We have way more in common than we don't. And I believe that it is essential that we start focusing first on what we have in common. We want to love and be loved. We want to be able to provide for our families, have a roof over our heads. And most of us really want the government to leave us alone. We need to start at the basics and start treating each other with respect. And again, because everything that I do is going to be from the constitutional view, that's the only way that I'm going to work across the aisle, is I'm going to expect my fellow senators that take the exact same oath that I do to hold their hold up their end of the oath that they take, and also follow the Constitution and vote accordingly.
Closing statement, how would you like voters to remember you most as they make their decision?
So I've already mentioned this, I'm not a career politician. My husband's a carpet installation contractor. We've been through the ups and downs. We know what it's like to struggle and make ends meet, just like so many people do in Oregon and across America. I'm here to serve the people. If you look at the voter guide, you're actually going to see a phone number. That's my personal cell phone number. And there are very few candidates that have the guts to put out their personal cell phone number. That means when I'm your US Senator, if you keep that phone number, you can actually call me. When I can't answer the phone, my staff will. And because there's a 3-hour time zone difference between DC and Oregon, when I call you 9 o'clock my time, it's 6 o'clock here. When I call you at midnight my time, it's 9 p.m. here. And I will do my utmost best to always be open and respond as fast as I possibly can.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much. Rae Perkins for US Senator. I appreciate your prayers and your vote and your support.
Opening statement.
All right. Hi, I'm Patty Snow. I live in Phoenix, Oregon, which is just outside the Rogue Valley, or it's in the Rogue Valley outside of Medford. I have lived in the 2nd District for the last 7 years. I was born and raised in Burley, Idaho. Don't feel sorry for me if you know it. I am running for Congress because when I saw what was happening to our Constitution and when I saw our rights being eroded, I got mad. And then I started to worry. I do not want to be known as the generation that passes on a country that has less freedoms than I had growing up. So I decided that you don't get mad about something, you don't blame other people, you get in and fix it. So that's why I threw my hat in the ring last May. And I've been traveling around this district since then, speaking to people, unlike some representatives you might know. And that is my goal. Get to know you, get to know what you need. Thank you.
First question, Oregon's 2nd District includes vast, as well you know, rural, agricultural, and natural resource-based communities. What are your top priorities for the district, and how will you advocate for them at the federal level?
For natural resources, or what was the?
Okay, for agricultural and natural resource-based communities.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted clarification on that. One of the things that I am most concerned about is the data center situation. In traveling around, speaking to people in the Dalles, speaking to people in Umatilla, in Union, they're all dealing with issues having to do with data centers. So I started looking up some of the information. What I realized is that for the Dalles, the amount of water, and I took a note so I get it correct, the amount of water that has been consumed by the Google data centers has grown 316% since 2020, or excuse me, since 2012. Yet the population has only increased 17%. That is how much water is going to the data centers. And so we need regulations. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have them. We need regulations for them.
Next question, many communities in the 2nd District face challenges with affordability, access to services, and economic opportunity. That's only 3 questions to me. What specific actions would you take in Congress to improve the quality of life for residents of the district?
This is the key question. You are all experiencing things in your daily life. You're seeing gas prices soaring. You're seeing the prices at the supermarkets going up. You are finding that your health care, that there are new restrictions in place and that you are having to pay more for health care. Housing is higher. All of these things are affecting you and your community, but they're coming from the top. They're coming from the federal government and the decisions are being made there. My platform focuses on government reformation. I believe that there are 5 different things that need to be changed. I can't answer it all in a minute, but I will address it in a little bit. So that's just a little tease of what I'm gonna talk about.
Well done, all right. Next, how will you work across party lines to get legislation passed in today's political environments?
Okay. Unlike most politicians, and by the way, I don't call myself a politician, I call myself a civil servant. I like people. I know that's really unusual for people in politics, but that's the whole reason I'm running. I never wanted to be in politics, never thought I would be. But I truly care about people. My kids have often accused me of never being a stranger, because I will go up and talk to anyone. I'm a Democrat, but I have had some really good conversations with some MAGA folks. And at the end of those conversations, we have shaked hands, we've shared a laugh, and we have thanked each other for listening. Not that they necessarily changed my viewpoint or I changed theirs, but we spoke to each other.
10
We didn't
seconds.
speak at each other.
All right. What does effective representation look like to you, and how will constituents know you are truly advocating for them in Congress?
Okay, well, first of all, true representation means getting out and talking to you, right? Sure, just a quick show of hands. How many of you talked to our current representative in person? Okay, I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see that. Not very many though, here, have talked to our current representative. If you are going to represent the people, you need to get out and hear their concerns. You need to know what it is that they want to see changed. You cannot be an effective representative without doing that. We also have to get big money out of our government, because right now, a lot of our elected officials are more concerned with taking care of the big corporations and the ultra wealthy donors than they are taking care of you. So that is how you'll know that I am listening to you. I'm coming out, I'm
10
talking to you,
seconds.
I'm hearing your concerns, and I'm not taking big money.
Okay, and final closing statement? How would you like voters to remember most about you as they make their decision?
Okay, I want you to remember 3 words when you hear my name. First of all, fighter. I am a tenacious fighter. When I get something that I want to see done, I get in and do it. Second, I am a fixer. I grew up in a family where when something happened, when there was injustice, you didn't point a finger and blame someone else. You didn't complain about it. You got in and fixed it. And I'm a good fixer. And then the last thing, as I alluded to before, is I'm a friend. I enjoy people. I am running to make your lives better, to make the lives of every American citizen better. And so when we think about Patty Snow, I hope you'll think fighter, fixer, friend, and hopefully U.S. representative. Thank you.
Thank you. You thought was funny, but did not come. So we'll move on to State Senator 26, if we can get Nicole Bassett, Jeff Helfrich, and Matthew Favro to all come up and sit down, and we'll pass the microphone around and have some fun. Okay, so here we go. We'll start with the same rule. We'll just rotate around, so everybody gets to start a question. And so we'll start with you with your introductory statement.
Excellent. Well, it's amazing to see how many people are here tonight. I guess we've all recovered from the Cherry Festival. My name is Nicole Bassett, running for Senate District 26 Senate seat. I am a Hood River resident, but I spent a lot of time in the Dalles because I'm a hospice volunteer and I have patients here. I spent most of my career working in business, creating economic value while protecting the planet and people. I've done this predominantly in the outdoor and apparel industry. And after a decade of doing that, I started my own company in Cascade Locks, where we created 40 local jobs and 80 globally. And we created economic value for our clients like Carhartt and the North Face, taking textile waste, repurposing it, and getting it out of landfill.
10 seconds.
That's what I do. I find hard problems, I pull together people and come up with innovative solutions. And I think that's what's needed in politics right now.
Hello, my name is Matthew Favro. I'm actually a father of four, and I actually am an electrical engineer and I work for AT&T. I am actually a concerned citizen for my four kids, hoping to maintain the level of life that we have, if not better for them. I think we need to protect our livelihood here, make sure that they continue to have jobs and have the best education that we have to offer.
Thank you. For those who don't know me, my name is Jeff Helfrich, State Representative for House District 52, running for the Senate. Obviously, a Senate district encompasses a lot of territory, but at the end of the day, I have spent my life in public service. I've a lifetime of service from the Air Force, 25 years in law enforcement, and now in public office. And with that said, you don't get credit for effort in those jobs. You get credit for results, and you're judged on those results. And with those things that are there, that's why I'm running for the Senate district. It's because people aren't seeing those results right now throughout the whole state because of what's happening in Salem, where it's just a one-party rule. With that said, for me, if something's not working, you fix it. And I've fixed a bunch of things, and I've got a lot of results that I've worked on. So that's what I'm going to ask you guys is vote for Senate District 26.
Okay, first question, we're just gonna just go back and forth on this. So you get to be first. And we're all gonna ask for the same question. So we'll start this with, what are your top legislative priorities for District 26 and how will you work within the state legislature to advance them?
It comes down to the basics. People want to feel safe in their communities. They want their kids to be prepared for the real world. And people want to be able to live and work where they're at and be able to have a good family wage job and do that. And that's what this district wants. That's what it matters. And for me, I helped fix Measure 110. We all know that debacle would happen. We lost a generation of people when we decriminalized drugs. And was able to bring home $125 million for the Hood River Bridge in a bipartisan way, in the minority party. And those are real results that I've been able to bring back to the district. And I'm really proud of those. And those impact everybody's daily lives. And that's how I approach the job. That's always how I've approached every job that I've been in. It's like, focus on what works, focus on what is everybody's deals with everyday life, and how do you fix those problems? If you can't fix them, figure out a way to go about doing business.
My biggest priority right now is actually the data centers. They are utilizing way too much energy, causing our electric bills to increase dramatically. We've recently had a 5% increase on all of our electricity, and it's because they are demanding more and more, so that PTE is using our rates that we are paying to fund the upgrades for them to use. This also includes the water usage that I pointed out earlier. And over in Eastern Oregon, Amazon recently settled in a lawsuit that they were poisoning the water supply of people that had wells. I don't want them to continue to have that perpetuate with the failed Google data center. We have 120 data centers here in Oregon that need to
10
be
seconds.
appropriately regulated so that they are not punishing us.
When I first get to the legislator, we have to focus on the immediate needs that are facing our communities. That's housing, that's mental health, that's education. The next priority for me is really about our economy. In order for Oregon to be able to deliver the services that we all need and to operate our lives, we need to have a very strong, robust, and functioning economy. I worked in economics and in business my entire career, and that's something I can bring to the table. There are amazing resources that I got to utilize as a business owner from the state, and I think more people need to know about them and be able to utilize them easier. Also, there's an opportunity in front of us with rising costs and a real challenge to getting access to materials to start building out a resiliency economy. And I think Oregon is very well positioned to do this, looking at things and emphasizing
10
resale,
seconds.
reuse, rental, recycling, different innovations that really get the most out of what we have here in the state.
Okay, since we started, we'll start with Mr. Favro for this question. And this is, Oregon continues to face challenges with affordability, including housing and cost of living. What specific actions would you support at the state level to address these issues?
So to go on the last point, I do think that when we appropriately regulate the data centers, that it should help us with our electricity bills. That is a major factor in most of our daily or monthly expenses that we have to account for. On top of that, we also have issues with our housing prices right now, with some people not even being able to afford rent. I think we need to further impose stricter regulations on how much they can increase rent yearly. 10% is far outpacing how much people make year over year when they make raises. It's kind of unreasonable that we have to have a maximum of 3% raise, but then have to pay 10% more on housing.
In that other direction, we're gonna we'll keep the order the same as we rotate around.
Yeah, so rising costs come from a variety of factors, some that we can control and some that are just coming at us from different places. The biggest issues that we're facing right now are the tariffs and the rising fuel prices, and it's hitting all industries. So people are gonna need immediate relief now, and there are some services, be it energy assistance or other assistance programs the state does offer, and making sure that those are getting efficiently and effectively issued out to people who need it. The other thing we have to start thinking systematically about is how do we reduce the risk of future costs that are gonna skyrocket? So if we do prevention, it's cheaper than recovery, and that's in both like wildfire and in healthcare. And so we have to really look at an overall of like where
10
are
seconds.
costs coming from, how are they increasing, and where we can address it.
Now I can
Yeah, we good.
figure it out. They're just saying, you know, people are feeling it, we talked about it, everybody's gonna probably have a certain thing to say about each one of those, but housing costs are up, energy and everyday costs are going up. Why that is because the government's overcomplicated things. Big government is not the answer. When it comes to housing, we've created so many rules and so many barriers to allow housing to be built. That's what happens, and they get the costs right. We'd love to have more timber. The timber costs, we can't use our timber the way we want to because of overregulation and wildfires. So by the time we overcomplicate everything, it costs more money. So I've made those, that has been my goal to simplify a lot of those things. I've done that with my work in the housing as being the vice chair of housing and homelessness. And we have to focus on what works. And if it doesn't work, remove it and get to the back to the basics with how we're able to move forward and keep things affordable. Energy is not because the data centers. Energy
10
is because it's clean energy and they put a premium on that and they have to charge more for that. And
Right, you'll pass it all the way down, please. Nicole is to start first this time. And this question is, Oregon has been working to address challenges related to addiction, homelessness, and public safety. What approach do you believe the state should take moving forward, and what changes, if any, would you support?
So as Representative Helfrich said, this district is very big, and I was out in Sandy last week picking up trash with their public safety officers. And we cleaned up an abandoned homeless camp and got to spend the morning learning so much about a lot of issues that I did not fully appreciate and understand, and also understand how many people are working on this real loop and link between addiction and homelessness, and accessibility to housing as well as like public safety was really, really eye-opening. And some of the things I heard was a desire to have more resources to help people at the community level and the public safety officers, and have more consistency in how people are trained
10
and how to
seconds.
show up at examples like this. So that really inspired me to want to help support some of those asks that those people had shared.
Well, pass it, sorry, we're gonna keep rotating this direction. So this time, you're second, and next time, yeah.
Thank God you're here.
I'm taken care of. And I appreciate that. Question, what?
Oh, once again,
I'm gonna use a full minute on this
it's
one.
all forgotten by now. Oregon's been working to address challenges related to addiction, homelessness, and public safety. What approach do you believe the state should take moving forward, and what changes, if any, would you support?
So when I was House Republican leader, I was in the minority party. And we had to fix Measure 110 because we decriminalized drugs. We need to recriminalize them. We need to have accountability. But also that accountability, the voters said that they want to have the ability to have people get treatment. I worked with Commissioner Hege and everybody, places across the state, because I was in law enforcement and I knew what it was like to see those issues, those problems. We put accountability back in, but then we offered the ability for this local leadership or local counties and states or the cities to get the money directly instead of it going through OHA where they end up losing about $100 million at one point. So it's about accountability. It's about getting the right resources where they need to be at, but the community needs stability and needed to have that ability to have, people, if you're using drugs, we've lost a generation.
10 seconds.
By allowing it to happen openly in those open drug markets. So with that said, I got more to say about that, but I'll pass the mic down and figure it out.
So homelessness is a really big problem here in Oregon. Drug use is definitely a big part of it, but you really can't help people that don't want to be helped. We should continue to offer them housing opportunities through various shelters that we have. But if they don't accept the help, they need to be looked at, and if they are currently using drugs, we need to enforce it and take them in and try and help them break free of the habit. It is something that needs to be addressed. I've worked in downtown Portland, and it is kind of disturbing to see some of the fentanyl usage, people collapsing over on the side of the sidewalk, and then people just lighting fires in the middle of the sidewalk. It's something that is a huge problem that does need to be addressed, and I think it does start at the community level with assisting people that want the help.
Okay, that goes back to him this time. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Try to do it this direction. We'll get this down by the time we get to 6 people up there.
Wow.
Okay, so your question here is, when faced with competing priorities and limited resources, which is like our life story, how will you decide which issues to prioritize your district?
You have to prioritize the impact of people's daily lives and how you spend that money. You know, it's public safety, schools, affordability, but that affordability can come if you have affordable housing. Those aren't optional for people. And so in the legislature, you have to focus on what systems are working, and if they're funding appropriately, you can move on to the next one, but you can't spread everything so thin. Where we didn't have enough money, $7 million for the wildlife or for the recovery for Rowena, I was able to get $3.5 million for recovery and cleanup, and that was a bipartisan effort. But that just because you have to work, you have to have a conversation, you have to be able to have those conversations inside and outside the building. And when the governor called me and asked how I could help, how she could help, I let her know with that. I worked with Commissioner Hege on getting those dollars to this community for those recovery efforts, so we can rebuild some of those houses.
10 seconds.
California houses, and people just buying them out, and that people could go back and live there, want to live that.
I think what we do need to focus on is the things that affect us most of day to day. Having stable roads so there's not potholes, so we can all commute to and from work, and then having good schools for our kids, I think, are the top priorities. We need to have our daily lives be unaffected by, budget cuts that are happening elsewhere. But
well, they don't tell you before you run for office that you're going to realize that there are a lot of needs and you're going to hear them from everyone. And everything is really important. We've talked about all these issues that are facing our communities, education, housing, the environment. And for me, when I look at solving problems, I look at, okay, what do we have control over and where can we make the biggest impact? And then also, how do we really weigh short and long-term consequences to these decisions? I think there's been a lot of we just have to solve this now. And we are now facing a lot of results of past decisions that are coming to roost. And we have to now start to solve them. And it's going to require a lot of hard trade-offs. Fortunately, I've spent my career working on issues that are balancing the business, the environment, society.
10 seconds.
That's not something I'm scared of. It's something I'm very comfortable with and something that is going to be needed in this role.
Okay, this time you get to start, and it's the last one, which is closing statement. What would you like the voters to remember about you when they think about you in that voting booth?
well, I just kind of want you all to do what you think is best when it comes time to vote. I don't really want to tell you to vote for me or anybody else, just what you want to envision the future of the state of Oregon. I want you to go with what you believe to be true. I just want to thank you all for coming here to give us your time to listen to everything that we had to say. Thank you very much.
I got to figure it out this time.
So I thought I'd share actually a quote from a friend of mine who, when I told them we're running for office, said, posted this. She said, one of my favorite humans on this planet is running for Senate District 26, and that's Nicole Bassett. I'm so excited by her courage and drive. She's a Hood River resident and a trailblazer in the outdoor economy. I've known her for 16 years, and I've never seen this woman get angry, frazzled, or frustrated by differences of opinion. She is a true bridge builder, a great listener, and is grounded in fairness and respect for all, and an honest desire to do what's right for the world. So I really appreciate all of you for being here, because there's a lot of people who are not engaged in politics right now, and it's no one in this room. You guys are amazing, and thank you.
I have spent my career in places where you're held accountable for results. And I have delivered on those results. And we're only here for a short period of time. My dad told me that, be a good steward, you're here for a small moment, and leave it better than you found it. And the decisions we make in that building, there's 90 of us that get to make those decisions. They're gonna last for a lifetime. So you're making the right decisions in the moments that you have. The question's simple, are we leaving them better than we found it? And the people before us thought they did, but now we're building for, we don't inherit the future, we build the future, and we're building the future for the next generations. Because I have a 12 and 14-year-old at home, and I want them to be able to live where we're at Hood River, and be able to stay there and raise a family. Right now, you can't afford that. And so the standard I bring to this office, and I brought to the House office, and I want to bring to the Senate, is accountability
10
with
seconds.
results. With that, ask your vote. Thank you. All right.
Now you can applaud for all three of those. District. So is Cleave Osborn, Hege, Hege Sanders, not Ken Sanders, just kind of a tool of you. Robb Fleming, Seeger, Nicole, Poublon, all up there. Okay, so as you probably figured out, I'm gonna start at this end with the first time you go down, and then every time we'll do one over, so everybody gets their chance to be the first, be the last. So the first question is, as we have all night long, please introduce yourself and share why you are running for Oregon State Representative.
Hello, I'm Scott Hege. I'm a Wasco County Commissioner currently. I've been serving for 16 years. Oh, sorry. Okay, we're standing up. All right. I'm Scott Hege. I'm a Wasco County Commissioner. I'm your Wasco County Commissioner if you live in Wasco County. And I'm in my final year of my final term. And I'm running for House Representatives, District 52. And just so it's clear, these gentlemen are running against each other, and I have two other candidates that I'm running against that are not here tonight. So the reason I'm running is because I think that Oregon is a great place. I think it was a much better place when I came in 1991, and we have a lot of things we need to change to get back to the great state of Oregon. And I think that I'm the person that can do a lot of those changes to help Oregon be a better place.
Hi, everybody, Bernard Seeger from Cascade Lots. So I got on city council in 24, and I've been doing it for 18 months and just having so much fun. I know it sounds a little crazy, but I enjoy being an elected official. And it hit me that I think part of the reason I'm having fun is I have a skill for this. I did 20 years of city and county management prior to this work, and all in the Pacific Northwest, and I gained a knowledge and understanding on how to solve problems. And that led to me being elected, and I thought, you know what, if I'm doing so well at the local level, why don't I try the state? And that's all backed up by, I think, a compelling life story. I'm a first-generation American. After high school, I went to West Point, and then I spent 8 years as an Army officer all over the world, doing a lot of tough things. After that, I went to graduate school to study public administration with a focus on local government. I love Oregon, and I'd love to represent you guys. Thank you.
For me. My name is Nicole and Poublon, and I'm running in 2026 for House District 52. I'm from Sandy, Oregon. During the day, I am teaching kindergarten to high school as a substitute teacher. Just depends on the day and the craziness level that I get assigned to. But I'm here because I'm a fighter. I was diagnosed with a brain tumor at 27, my first week of graduate school at Portland State University. And instead of laying down and letting something happen to me, I stood up and I actually reformed the school's health insurance and made sure that 28,000 students were able to negotiate health insurance on behalf of themselves for the first time in the university's history. They slid a book across the table to me when it came time for me to graduate and asked me what job I would like next. And I became the student health advisor and spent 10 years making sure that nobody had to jump through the crazy hoops I had to jump through in order to get healthcare and to get health insurance. I'm also a former legislative aide to this district, so I have spent time with that email address working on behalf of you
10 seconds.
and people in this district with water rights issues, voting issues, DMV issues. I can do the work on day one. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is David Osborn, and I grew up in rural Douglas County and now live in Corbett on the west side of the gorge, where I've been raising my family for a little bit over a decade. I'm a lifelong educator, also have been a nonprofit leader in this district for about 20 years, working on environmental issues, especially around forests and watersheds. Most recently, I co-founded the Sandy River Watershed Council, which helps work to restore the river and help the fish populations and help communities connect to it. And I fundamentally am running because I love this place. I have dedicated my life to service, and things are not working right now for families in our district or around our state. Things are incredibly expensive. We have extraordinary costs for healthcare, housing, childcare. We're not doing the work we need to around wildfire.
10
And
seconds.
while all of this is going on, there have been changes at the federal level from Trump to create a huge budget deficit. We cannot solve that with cuts and ask people to do more and more with less and less.
Time.
Hi, my name's Hank Sanders. I grew up in rural Gaston, Oregon. I left home to go to college and to work as a reporter for the Chicago Tribune and then the New York Times. And I'm running because our community's in pain. Whether you're Lydia here in the Dalles, who's had their immigration hearing canceled by the federal administration, or you're like me and start your morning off with a run through Indian Creek Trail and you're wondering when the forest is going to burn down. Things are not better now and won't be better over the next couple of years and decades and lifetimes or your children's lifetime unless we do something. I have a track record of standing up to fascism and authoritarianism as a reporter for the Chicago Tribune and the New York Times. And I have the experience in Salem working in the Oregon State Senate to pass bipartisan legislation to make our communities a little bit better. Life is expensive. Ask your family, ask yourselves about your budgets. It's not looking too great, but we can fix these issues together.
Right, you pass that down to them. And you get the first issue. What are your top legislative priorities for District 52 and how will you work within the state legislature to advance them?
Sure, so my top four are combating mis and disinformation. The next is housing and affordability. Third is economic development. And fourth is what I call youth support and youth development. To take action on those, you do what you do, the hard work. It's about getting to know your fellow electeds, creating trust, building relationships, and then forming points of alignment for what policy you can get solved. I've done that for 20 years. I feel very confident in this space. Would love to do it at a higher level. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question one time?
Oh, go ahead, yeah, sure. What are your top legislative priorities for District 52 and how will you work within the state legislature to achieve them?
Okay, so affordability is a huge issue. You're gonna hear that talked about a lot tonight. Affordability in housing. I grew up on a dairy farm living next door to my grandparents. I live now next door to my mother-in-law. It's something that I want for the future of generations, is that ability to be able to live in the community where you grew up and live next door to a family member. So one of my first priorities is removing regulations and making sure that people can build and build houses. And then when we do, we need to make sure that when we do push through the urban growth boundaries, that we do so and we're building low and medium income housing that actually people of my generation can purchase. The other thing I'm really concerned about is healthcare. Healthcare costs are going up. I talked to people in the district who are paying $900 a month for health insurance that they were paying $250 for recently. People are making decisions about which children they're going to cover. That is a devastating decision to have to make and one that I don't want to see happen. I'm on the board of directors for Healthcare for All Oregon here at the state. I serve with them every day. I'm working to make sure that every Oregonian has access to healthcare.
So in the time that I have, I'll share three with you. One around affordability, one around education, and one around wildfire. With our affordability crisis, we have to take action at the state level. I've been talking to folks here in the Dalles with this Columbia Center for Living, as well as One Community Health. Those budgets are going to be devastated by changes at the federal level. That is going to cost all of our costs to go up. We have to take action at the state level around healthcare, around housing, to make sure that those kinds of devastating impacts to our community don't happen. On education, we also need to be making sure that we're providing full funding for our schools. We can't expect to recover from, what is it, 46, I believe, in the nation in terms of academic outcomes without the educational assistants, the special education teachers, the staffing that we need in the schools. And we compare that with changes around curriculum that can best support our students. And then around wildfire, we have to be engaging seriously in this issue, making sure we're investing in home hardening to protect our communities and engaging in those practices that will prevent wildfire and mitigate it when it does arise and keep our communities safe.
There's an app on your phone called Find My Friends where you can see where contacts on your phone live. And if you look at mine, you'll see that everybody that I grew up with here in Oregon has left our state and they are building their lives in other states. And in order to bring them back, in order to coax them back to the best state on the planet, is you have to have a great job for them and a place for them to live. And so it all comes back to that. The Chamber of Commerce is putting it up. They know that that's what we need to do. And so I make the Gresham storefront, garage to storefront bill statewide, where they waive fees for small businesses opening up their first storefront for the first year. That's not tax breaks for $1 billion, $1 trillion company. None of that. That's a little bit of incentive for people to open up storefronts in our downtowns, get people back to work, make sure that there's good, strong jobs so that people can live in the communities where they want to live.
So my three elements would be business climate is the first one, affordability, and then schools. And unless you have a robust, productive business climate, you're not going to have jobs that Hank just talked about. And I think in order for people to live here and have any sense of affordability, they have to have a job. And they have a job that can actually pay decent money. So we have to have a business climate that works. And honestly, in Oregon, the decisions that have been made in Salem over the last decade have been driving businesses from our state. You see it time and time again where corporations are picking up and leaving and going to other states. We need to make sure that we have a climate that they can survive in. And in terms of schools, our schools, unfortunately, are at the lowest end, but we're also spending a lot of money on schools. So we have to figure out how we can give control back to our school board so they can make this local decisions to make the schools the best that they can be.
All right, now we pass it down to start the next one. So there we go. Oregon continues to face challenges with affordability, including housing and cost of living. What specific actions will you support at the state level to address those issues?
Yeah, housing is a huge issue. I talk to people in the district all the time who are driving from Gresham to come work in Hood River. And that's not sustainable, especially with what's going on with gas prices right now. And so housing, we need to streamline permitting. We need to make it available for folks to be able to build ADUs in their extra space so that they can make space available for folks that can provide houses and are using the land that they have. As far as other issues go, you know, when we, the rest of the question was about housing and
cost of living.
And cost of living. And so, you know, making sure the first question I'm gonna ask myself every time is how this bill, when it comes out of Salem, affects rural Oregonians, because I don't think that we get put at the table very often. And I'm gonna be a Democrat who sits at the table with those majority folks and has an actual voice at the table, speaking for the Dalles and for this community and making sure that rural voices are heard first and foremost.
So I'm a parent to two wonderful young children, and so these kinds of cost of living and affordability issues I experience every day in my family and navigate the different decisions we make. I'll share two things around housing that I feel like can be done. And one of those is that I feel like that we as Democrats can also ease the regulatory pathway so that building can happen. That also should be something that we're working on. And that is absolutely something that I would be committed to doing. The second piece around that is focusing on the kind of financing that the state can provide to provide low interest loans to make those affordable housing projects that are maybe targeted to middle income areas that are struggling to afford housing pencil out. We can provide low interest loans at the state level without risk and make sure that those projects are able to then move forward and build housing for folks that need it. And then finally, I think that in order to have those good jobs, we need a foundation of different kinds of things like healthcare, but also childcare. And we need to be doing more to make childcare affordable and making it so every kid in the state can afford to go to preschool.
Two quick stories for you. I knocked on Claire's door. She's a mother of two in Hood River County. She is paying $35,000 a year for childcare for her two children. How can you have a family? How can you have to be a millionaire to have a family at that rate when you also add in food costs and housing costs? So we need to pass $5,000 tax credits targeted at the workforce, similar to the rural nurse practitioner tax credit that we passed back in 2000, I believe, that allowed for so many amazing nurse practitioners to move outside of urban Oregon into rural Oregon. Number two, there's a lot of fees attached to building affordable housing you wouldn't even think of. Like, for example, we mandated that you have to have internal AC, which is a great idea, but it adds millions of dollars of overhead. When I've lived in apartments, all around the state and in two other states in college, and I just have those crummy little window units that sometimes drip water in your head, but they're good enough. And if that's the difference between building affordable housing and not, then we should definitely be building affordable housing.
Time.
All the way down. You can rotate to the direction.
Okay, I would agree with housing. Housing is a big challenge in our state, and it's also typically the largest amount that you pay per month. But I'm going to start, because we only have 60 seconds. I'm just going to start about one thing that the legislature did in the last session, right? They passed the gas tax. And, we're all going to be voting on it in May, and it's going to raise over $4 billion. So I think the problem is I think there maybe is a reason why we need more money for our roads. I totally support that. But the fact that we can't work on a bipartisan basis to figure out how we can move forward is the problem. It's the basic problem of what's happening in Salem and around the nation in terms of political. We need to work together, and we need to figure out how we're going to work together to get solutions that are going to work for all of us. And this is one example, is driving that cost. And we need to have a solution that's going to work for all of us, as just not for one party.
So specific for me would be to do the same thing we did at the state level for accessory dwelling units, but do it for co-housing. And co-housing is a form of housing where you have a shared green space, laundry, and kitchen facilities, and it's surrounded by 4 or 5 living units. You can do that at a much lower price point, and it doesn't require public subsidy. So I love that, okay? And then not only are you creating an affordable price point for renters who then now can save some money and build some wealth, but also you're addressing this loneliness and that impact. If you're in a 1-bedroom by yourself, not only are you spending all your money on rent, but you're not connecting with folks. This does both of those. And again, it's developer friendly. I think it's an easy thing to do. I'd love to see it all over the state. And the last thing on energy, we should be pushing hard on clean energy in Oregon. We have tremendous and abundant resources. Let's take advantage of that, lower energy costs both for consumers as well as make us more business friendly. Thanks.
Okay, next question. As a state representative, how will you balance representing the views of your constituents while using your own judgment while making legislative decisions?
So
It should be the gentleman next to you.
I started first last time.
He did, okay, you're right. Brought me on that.
So working it out, but we're almost there. So I serve as the vice chair of the Corbett School Board. And so I do this very thing every day when I'm doing school board work. Corbett is a very purple mixed community, many different political viewpoints. And I'm constantly both listening to the members of that school district and also then working on the school board to integrate my own values. And so I think the two pieces of that are essential is being really clear about the kind of values and principles that I'll be bringing to this office, which I've shared about throughout this campaign. They're on my website if you want to look at them. And then also making sure to convene people that are impacted by the issues that are affecting them. Because I feel like those folks that are experiencing whatever it might be, whether you're an educator or a small business owner, a member of the Latino community, somebody that does a certain kind of trade, then I'm going to want to be listening to you and convening those groups of people to be able to respond to that and then balancing that with the kind of values and principles that I'll be bringing.
As I've worked in Salem, I've found that you can do both. You can listen to constituents and you can also put forward policy that you think is right. And it's oftentimes those are on the same mission. And the important thing is to write good policy without loopholes. So often I've seen policy come from my desk, but come over across my desk. There's just L2. And I've seen those policies, and there's loopholes literally written in them. And then somebody will go on the floor and ask a question about that loophole, and then it'll get amended out because they almost got caught. And so I think one of the things about policy is so often policies are written to be vague, or they're written for special interests to get involved. And that's what's raising our costs and making life a little bit harder. If you write policy that's intended to work for working families, intended to lower costs for people, that policy is oftentimes within the same mission as your constituents.
All right, so the thing about the legislature is, as you know, there's 3,000 bills in every session. So, and the number of pages per each bill, you cannot believe the amount of like verbiage that you have to read. So it's a challenge, right? But the main thing is, as a representative of the people, you need to be connected with the people. We need to be here, we need to be talking, you need to be calling me, we need to be communicating. We need to be doing all of it. And we need to be able to communicate to you, because my experience at the commission level is just land use policy is so complicated that the normal people is just trying to figure out kind of what it says and how it affects you is really difficult. So communication and education from my standpoint to the constituents is really a key in making sure that we, one, have good policy and that it's understood what it's going to be doing and that you can have input on it.
10 seconds.
So on my website, I've got a governing philosophy, and two of my principles are to govern responsibly, which means listening to your voters and understanding their concerns, and then govern responsibly, which means being a good steward of these institutions that we manage at the state level. Needless to say, I would seek decisions that maximize both of those and hit them on behalf of the institutions as well as the constituents that I'm serving. But I can imagine there's going to be decisions I'm going to make that will be disappointing from the constituents' perspective. If that happens, it's because I'm seeking a long-term concern in exchange for a short-term pain. I imagine those come forward, and I'm comfortable holding that. Ultimately, if you guys elect me, you're electing me to lead. And that's what I'm going to do. And I
10 seconds.
promise to do it to the best of my judgment.
I think this job starts with listening, which is what everyone has said. When it comes down to it, I'm going to be a representative who does not seek out your approval once it's too late, or get your opinion once there's nothing that you can do about it. So I'm going to talk to you, seek out your opinion and your view on an issue before I ever get to the table and have the conversation with the rest of my fellow Democrats, because I care about what gets said and what your views are here in the district. Part of the reason that I'm running is, again, in 2026, is because I didn't look people in the eye in 2024 and tell them that I heard them. And I understood the issues, and I heard what they had to say about their lives, and then just turn around after 1,300 votes, 1,300 vote loss. So I'm very much listening to the district, and knocking on doors every day, driving up here, knocking on doors every day, so I'm sure everyone else is. But I want you to know that your opinion is going to be sought out before it's too late. I'm not going to come to you after the decision has already been made and try to cram it down your throat. Thank you.
All right, and this one is, what role do you believe a state representative should play in shaping policy versus responding to constituents, and how will you balance those responsibilities?
Yeah, I think there's three parts to this job. I think first is listen first, talk second. Number two, be available, be very available. And then number three, have a worldview that you're comfortable explaining to people. So when it comes to listening first, I'm a journalist or a former journalist and still do some journalism on the side. And that's the job of a professional listener. Your job is to be a professional listener. And then number two, when it comes to availability, I have knocked on every single Democratic voter's door in the primary, before ballots hit. That's never been done before in this district, from what I understand. And also, my worldview is to fight for a better future, to fight for a future for you and your family, and make life a little bit easier for the next generation and our current generations. That's why I'm running. That's why I'm so excited to be here with you all today. What an honor. This is so much fun.
So it's a challenge. This job is a challenge, and I think communicating with everyone's a challenge. And I think there's a couple of steps in there. One is I have to be here and I have to be listening, but I also have to have staff that also listen. So When Rae Perkins talked about her number being available, my number needs to be available to everybody. Everybody can call me. They call me now. All of our addresses, commissioner addresses are on our website, and I get called all the time. Talk to people in the store, etc. But I think having staff that can actually be a venue for you to talk to, and then me being available to do that, I think it's key that, you have information and that you understand what's going on sale, because a lot of times people are not connected. They don't understand how easy it is to connect with sale. And I want you to have my number and be able to communicate so that we can talk and have good communication.
So look, to me, this is a very similar question to the question before. And again, my bias is for long-term solutions over short-term. But at the end of the day, when you take on a decision, you're there to first learn about the issue, understand how any solution would impact constituents, and then find a solution that if you can't completely address those concerns, you at least mitigate them. Because ultimately, we're optimizing policy. A lot of policies are not going to make everybody happy, and we have to find a good balance that optimizes the good parts and then mitigates the bad parts. If we can do that, I think you'll find legislation that most folks can agree with.
The job of a state representative is to listen and to legislate. So this is a two-part job. One of them is to be in the district, hearing about what's happening, attending events, having conversations with constituents. The other part is making sure that when an email comes into that address with a concern over a hunting license or a water issue, or the DMV isn't open, or someone is having a problem with the record, it's making sure that your office is open and available to respond to that constituent and make sure that their needs get met. It's one of the reasons why I decided to run for this office, because I found meeting constituent needs was actually a really rewarding process. There were people that were struggling with things that they struggled with for months or years that we could solve after sending an email and digging into the situation. And that's part of the job that I'm looking forward to. At the same time, you have to be able to legislate and be able to hear what's happening in the district and take those connections that you make in the district and the conversations that you take and apply them to
10
the
seconds.
majority in Salem.
So I think these two things should inform one another. In other words, if what our constituents are reaching out to us about are not then showing up in the kinds of policies that we're working on, we're missing something there. And so I think there's actually a real synergy between the two. But of course, in this role, we have to have good systems, good setups with our staff so that we can be responsive to the things that are coming through from y'all in terms of the needs that you want from our office. I have personally experienced very significant things that elected officials have been able to do through constituent services, and I know how important it is. And so my office will be available, and I'll also be available as well out in the community. Right now, you can schedule a meeting with me on my website. I've been meeting with people countlessly throughout this district, and I'll continue to do that. So those will be aspects of it, and then those conversations, the problems people keep bringing back to me should inform me about some of the policies that I'll
10
need to be
seconds.
pursuing. But we have to be doing both, and I see how they can very effectively speak to one another.
On the other end. That's all we're going here. Okay, this is the wind up. I know you've enjoyed watching and listening to these guys. Here is the final question. What do you like voters to remember about you when they go to vote?
So I would say that as a commissioner, 16 years, I've been doing a job very similar. So I've been listening to constituents. I've been working exactly as taking calls and solving problems. As a staff person at the port, I was working directly in economic development and working the entire time for over 30 years, working with state and federal officials to try to do this. So I think I'm the person that has the experience, the skill, and the drive to do this. I really think that what we need to get to is a place where we're not so far apart and we're working to try to solve problems together. I think the biggest problem in Oregon is one-party rule, and I think one-party rule basically makes legislation that does not work for everybody. It seems like a good idea depending on which party you're in, but at the end of the day, it makes bad legislation that doesn't work, and I think that's why Oregon is where in the place that it's at now, and I think we need to change that. We need to work on behalf of all citizens.
So look, I grew up in East Texas, and then I wrestled for 11 and a half years as a kid, and it taught me grit, resilience, and fairness to play. I would argue that was formative to me, and it's how I got into West Point and how I survived the Army and did a lot of tough things in my life. What I want you to remember me is skills, electability. I think I come to this position with tremendous skills given my education, my Army experience, as well as 20 years in city and county management. From an electability perspective, look, this district is purple. We need to reach those independent, unaffiliated voters. I think a veteran can do that the best, especially someone coming from East Texas. I know how to talk to conservative. I have a lot of friends that are conservatives. I can connect with them and I can win this race if I win the primary. Appreciate your support.
The thing I would want you to remember the most about me is that I continue to raise my hand, that I'm a fighter. When something comes up that's big, like a brain tumor, I don't lay down, get back up and figure out what we have to do to find a solution. And in that process, not find a solution just for me, but for everybody else that I worked with and everybody else that I was around. That is the kind of fight and grit and determination that I will bring to this office when you have elected me to send me to Salem. And back in 2024, there were no other Democrats who were willing to stand up against the Republican minority leader, and yet I did. And I'm back again in 2026 because, like I said, I looked people in the eye. I heard what they had to say. I understood what kind of experiences that you're having in your communities, and I could not turn away from you and not run again in order to make sure that your voices are heard at the table and at the Democratic majority. Thank you.
So some of the things that I would want you to be sitting with me is to know that I refuse to accept the status quo right now, where our state and our federal government is so thoroughly failing working people and providing us with the things that we need to live stable lives, to be able to afford life, to be able to raise our families and our communities. And I'm going to fight to make sure that we change that, both within the Democratic caucus, because that is the party that I am in, but also through working across the aisle in ways that are essential. And I'm also going to be focused on care. There's so much cruelty right now. We have to be working here in our state of Oregon to take care of one another, to make sure that we are providing for the things, healthcare, housing, education, childcare, those things that allow our society and our economy to thrive, the foundation that it lives on. And then also the experience that I bring. I serve on the school board. I've been a nonprofit leader. I'm a parent. I've been an educator my entire life. I've worked across many different organizational contexts to bring change and to make the things that need to happen.
My name's Hank Sanders, and my closing argument is that I'm here to flip a purple district. How do we do that? Well, first of all, you need to have a clear vision. My clear vision is to stand up to fascism and to fight for working families and the next generations. That's been my clear vision from day one. Number two, raising money. You have to fundraise to flip a district, and I've outraised my opponents, even though my friends are all 25 broke journalists. And then we also need to knock doors. You need to knock a lot of doors to flip a tough purple district and reach each voter at the door. And I've knocked our team has knocked 7,500 doors throughout the entire district in just a couple months. And we'll be knocking every door, every Republican, every NAV, and every Democrat door again. That's my mission, that's my plan. We need to fight for a better future. What's happening right now is not okay, and all indications that it'll only get worse.
Okay, now you can applaud for all of them. No confusion about this, you get to answer all the questions in a row. All right, so we'll start out with your introduction. Why you're running for state representative? And what you're gonna do about it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. I'm Jim Doherty. I'm a fifth generation cattle rancher, and my family has tended this land for over 100 years. I became a county commissioner because I wanted to serve my community, right? And as a county commissioner, I started hearing from families that were suffering, thyroid and kidney cancers at an incredible rate, right? Young mothers who couldn't understand why they couldn't start a family, and everything pointed to the water. So I immediately went out and I tested. I went door to door personally, and I tested 70 wells, and 68 of them came back above the consumable limit, right? And it brought to light things that Salem had known for 30 years.
10 seconds.
My opponent had known for 26 years. I won't stand by. I'll step up. I'm Jim Doherty.
All right, next question. As you well know, District 57 includes large rural and ag interests that also impact neighboring communities like Wasco County. What are your top legislative priorities, and how will they benefit both your district and the broader region?
Yeah, I appreciate that. The District 57 takes up all or part of Umatilla, and Morrow, and Sherman, and Wheeler, and Wasco, and Jefferson, Marion, and Wasco, or Clackamas County. And to the speaker over here, I must say, Wasco County is not a neighbor to District 57. The vast majority of Wasco County is in District 57. District 57 starts on the outskirts of the Dalles now.
I got it backwards. Thank
Yeah,
you for
yeah.
correcting me.
So through redistricting, but I get your point. We don't live in a vacuum out here, right? What happens upstream happens to you guys. What happened, I'm on the Oregon Hanford Cleanup Board and the Hanford Advisory Board, and I'm fighting the federal government because they want to send 180
seconds.
trains of hazardous waste down and up the Deschutes River, over the next 10 years, 180
Time.
trains a year. We're all connected. We all have to fight for one another.
Okay, next question. Rural communities continue to face challenges with access to healthcare, workforce, and essential services. What specific actions would you support at the state level to improve access and strengthen those communities?
Yeah, I appreciate that. There's 100 folks in this room right now, and all of you are professionals in what you do, right? I don't do what Robb and Cleave does. I don't do what John does, but you're professionals in what you do. You gotta go out. I gotta go out and talk to these healthcare folks, right? I mean, do they need more telemedicine? Do they need some tax breaks? Do they need some loan forgiveness? What is it they need? I reached out to Sheriff Lowry and Sheriff Bowles and talked to Sheriff Lowry, past Sheriff Lowry. He came into office the same time my opponent did, some 26 years ago. And I've talked to him several times over the last couple of years. And he said, this is a bit of an anomaly. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, your opponent, the fellow you're running against, he says, has come by in the last 26 years and talked to me once about my issues. And, they've got a lot of issues, whether it's immigration or ICE holds and detention and these kind of things, right? You gotta go to the professionals that know these things. You guys know better than I. My door is open to hear from you.
Time.
Okay, natural resources, agriculture, and energy production are critical to this region's economy. How would you balance economic growth with responsible land and resource management?
Yeah, I'm a cattle rancher, right? So holding on to ag land is super important to me, and never in our lifetime have we seen it going away like it's going away right now, right? There's 19 hyperscale data centers in the Columbia Basin in some form of development. And now they're talking about bringing in an exascale data center. You guys can Google it later. And that just took out 1,300 acres of farmland. And I said, how in God's name would they feed that thing? It's almost a third of what PGE will put out in a year, right? What's that going to do to your rates? Well, they went to the B2H or Boardman to Hemingway line, which was supposed to shore up the grid down here. And now they said it's going to go to one customer, an exascale data center, right? So I sat down and crafted the Oregon Data Center
10 seconds.
and Natural Resource Protection Act. Again, I didn't wait. We hear data center, data center, data center. I stepped up and did something.
All right. Rural and urban priorities can differ across the state, as you well know. How will you advocate for your district while still working towards solutions that serve all Oregonians?
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that urban and rural doesn't exist. And when I was the president of the Association of Oregon Counties, it was back during the cap and trade and a lot of the gun legislation. And the last vestige of civility, I think Robb or, Mr. Hege would contend was the last vestige of civility. We were quickly becoming like Salem. And I said, what we need to do is the commissioners in the valley need to spend a week with the commissioners in Eastern Oregon. And they divvied up, and Sushila Jayapal from Portland, right? She spent a week out in Union County, and the Union County commissioners spent a week in Portland. And that November when we got together, we talked about it. And she said it was the scariest week of her life. And he got up and he said, are you kidding? He said, I had to spend a week in downtown Portland.
All right, closing statement. What would you like the voters to remember about you?
Yeah, sure. Now there's 2,000 homes that have been tested, right? The port has put in a $500 million secondary treatment plan. The next generations of mothers up there have an opportunity to start a family. You don't sit by and wait. My opponent's been in Salem for 26 years. He makes over $1 million a year. He's brought in over $1 million into his campaign coffers. 97% of that comes from outside the district. I'd encourage you to go look at his webpage and look at the packs that send him the money. I'll never take a pack dollar because they come with strings. And the Amazon payment was because one person stood up, right? There's 10 more folks that are gonna have to pay because they polluted that as well.
10 seconds.
And if you wanna find their campaign funds, you'll find them in my opponent's coffers. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Rob. For position number one, Lisa Gambee, John Pratt, Nicole Belcher, and Robin Lee. Come on up. Okay, hopefully by now we've got the drill down, we can begin. And your opening statement, introduce yourself and share why you're running for Wasco County Commissioner.
All right. All right. This thing open? There we go. All right. My name is John Grant. I'm a Navy veteran. I've been in the community. Well, I was born and raised in the Columbia Gorge, and I moved back to the community in 2012. I've worked a lot with businesses locally through different jobs that I've had, and I've volunteered in the community. So I've been on the budget committee for the school district. I've been on the planning commission for the city. I have also coached youth sports. I'm also the chairman for the Wasco County Republican Party, and I really wanted to step up for the middle class within our community, for the small businesses that I worked with on a regular basis and seeing them struggle, and it really has helped me to run.
It's kind of a nice spot, huh?
It is.
Yeah, I like the deer in the headlights look. Hi, my name is Lisa Gambee, and many of you know me because of the years that I spent as Wasco County Clerk. For those of you who don't know what the clerk's office do, they run elections, they issue marriage licenses, and they manage property records. In my role as county clerk, I got to work with every community, from Mosier in the northwest all the way to Antelope in the southeast. In my role as county clerk, I was able to modernize county systems, services, not systems. I could just see Andrew Burke saying he didn't touch the computers. See, now I get on. I was integral in the development of county's strategic plan and culture guide, and I developed the relationships that still shape how I serve today. Before public service, I worked in marketing and
10 seconds.
communications, brand strategy, and I have learned to communicate clearly, to listen deeply, and I am running for Wasco County Commissioner because I want to bring all of the experience I have to work for all of you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Robb Van Cleave. It's nice to look around the room and see a lot of people that I've worked with over the years on many of the positions that I've been honored and privileged to hold. One of those positions is I was elected 6 times to the city of the Dalles, serving as city councilor, council president, and 5 terms as mayor. Most recently, I've served on the MCMC board as vice chair and the Adventist Health Columbia Gorge board as chair. Currently, I work as the county administrator for Clickitat County, where I oversee directly 11 departments, about 80 employees, and have an $11 million budget that I'm responsible for. I'm running for county commissioner because I believe this place we call home is worth fighting for, and I'm not done fighting yet.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Nicole Beichler. I am a 4th generation Wasco County resident. Public service, quite frankly, is in my blood. My great grandfather was the county clerk of Wasco County in the 1920s to 1940s. And many of you may actually know my grandmother, who was the Mosier librarian for quite some time. I have a background in business and political science graduate from Western Oregon University. I actually think I get to use my degrees every single day. I am currently the Norpor business manager, where I do oversee a $13.5 million budget, and have also previously been the human resources director for Wasco County.
Who's got the least against this time? You start this one, your next question. Wasco County has seen significant new revenue from data centers and expiring abatement agreements. What is your top priority for how this funding should be used, and how would you ensure it benefits the community long term?
Thanks. So from what I see, there is significant revenue that comes in, but revenue that comes in from things like data centers in the north or even solar farms in the south are supposed to first and foremost be spent on communities where that impact occurs. So what I would like to do is make sure that those communities that are suffering those impacts are getting that benefit of funding infrastructure, public service and public safety issues, and those kinds of things that are felt because of that company being in the area. When planning for the investments, I would want to make sure that we are having a component in there that is directly
10 seconds.
centered on maintenance and future maintenance, and making sure that those systems that we put in place are sustainable well into the future.
Well, the short answer is we have to find a balanced approach. You can't spend it all and you can't save it all. I believe this funding provides us an opportunity to reimagine how we do economic development and how we approach it. It's very facilitative. I think it needs to be proactive. We need to move away from the boom bust cycles of single large employers. There was a time when nobody imagined we'd lose the timber industry, but we did, and it devastated Tye Valley and Maupin. There was a time when nobody thought the aluminum industry would go away, but we did. And our unemployment was over 14% at one time. We have to move away from single large employers. If anybody thinks the high-tech industry is going to be here for as long as timber or aluminum is, you're sadly mistaken. We need to start planning now for the future. We need a common vision for economic development that honors and respects the individuality of all of the separate communities throughout Wasco County.
Would echo a little bit of what Rob was saying, that it is a balancing act, and I think that, you know, initially with some of the short-term community stability that the county needs to invest in, and that's public safety, that's housing, and that's the infrastructure projects that we deal with on a daily basis. And I would also say long-term aspects, we really need to make sure that we're being wise with investing that money, putting it in long-term accounts, investment accounts, whether that is, you know, a rainy day fund that we need to essentially come back to at some point, or whether that's a long-term revenue gaining fund as well. Thank you.
All right. Well, everybody loves to hear how a politician's gonna spend your tax dollars, right? So I mean, those monies are gonna be just coming right to you know, at our disposal. But you know, we've got to make sure that we balance our budgets. We've got to save for rainy day funds. You know, we know that that money can go away extremely quick. You know, I would like to see, you know, some offsetting of SDCs, some property taxes. You know, that way we can really address some of the housing that we have. You know, but we do have to look at some infrastructure. We don't know what the future holds. I mean, technology is
10 seconds.
like crazy. So, you know, I think that I think that we just got to be responsible with your guys' money.
Brad Cleave starts this one. Do you support the continued expansion of data centers in Wasco County, including new construction and related power infrastructure? Why or why not? What segments, if any, would you support?
It's a short answer, I do not. I think, again, to follow up on my previous comment, at least the timber industry and the aluminum industry were locally owned. And most of the employees lived here. Now, many of the Google employees live here too, and they're a valuable part of the community. But we need to focus on small to medium employers that are locally based and bring family wage jobs to Wasco County. That needs to be our new focus. And for that, I say no more data farms. It's time to move to the next good idea.
So I will say I support reasonable expansion, not just growth for growth's sake. With that being said, I think data centers bring valuable revenue to our communities, but we need to be wise about how we're investing in that. They also use a lot of energy, a lot of land, and a lot of water. And so what are we doing to protect our natural resources and the taxpayers and the invested constituents when we're making those decisions for the long term? I would also just say that I would support limits where infrastructure can't keep up. And I do believe that the county needs to take a more active role in negotiating agreements that really do truly serve the residents and community.
Repeat the question one more time.
Yeah. You support continued expansion of data centers in Wasco County, including new construction and related power infrastructure. Why or why not? And what limits, if any, would you support?
I think there's better use of our land. We need to attract businesses here to the Dallas area, to Wasco County. People that are going to employ people to be able to build a strong tax base. I just don't know if the data centers are going to be what's going to be the most beneficial to our county. But that being said, it depends on the resources and the information that's being given. For me to say if it's a hard no or a yes, I think that wouldn't be quite fair. So, at this time, I don't think that it would be a good idea to expand, but you never know.
So when the first data center got built back in 2005, I don't think any of us in this room could have predicted the impact of the explosion of AI and that impact that is having on our power and on our water and on our communities, right? So what Jim Doherty just stood up and told us tonight is hurts, right? Because those are the kinds of impacts. If we don't understand the full impacts still of AI and those data center usages on our water, on our energy, on our aquifers, on our wells, then I think that it's time to say, let's put a pause on that until we've done our research and figured out what's fact and what's fiction before we move forward.
That's Nicole. Next question. Affordable and workforce housing continues to be a challenge. What specific actions would you take at the county level to increase housing availability?
Yeah, so I think we just need to continue to work on removing barriers and actively working with our city partners. We need to start leveraging some state funding as well so that we can ensure that continual development is occurring also. We have some pretty big housing projects in the works right now, which I do think is a step forward. But we really do need to make sure that we're continuing to look at and review some of those barriers that do get put in place. And those levers really at a county level are, just planning and truly just looking at development in general and the revenue and expense that's being spent.
We definitely think we need to take a look at how much we put into affordable housing and start taking a look at the land usage that we have. And we need to start working with developers and, start cutting the red tape. I've spoken with quite a few contractors and, working with the different business or the different government entities has been challenging for them. I think we need to take a look at our planning, take a look at our zoning, and try to make it as easy as we possibly can. We need to partner with our contractors here locally and figure out what the problems are and how to make it easier for them to be able to develop at the lowest cost possible.
So I had a conversation with Karen
Fleming at New Columbia Housing, and they're the partner for the county in developing affordable housing. And what she said they needed is buildable land. Right? If they can focus their costs on construction and not the costs of having to actually purchase the property, that is a huge, huge lift for them. So the county owns multiple properties, and I think it would be smart of the county to take a look at those properties and determine whether or not they're being underutilized. And if they are being underutilized and not for best use, and they're available and buildable parcels, then we should look at whether there's a community benefit in having those donated so that it can go into a land trust and help
10 seconds.
reduce those barriers to getting affordable housing projects off the ground.
The housing shortage generally follows the population. 65% of the population lives in the incorporated cities of Wasco County. The city councils in those cities are primarily responsible for addressing the housing needs within their jurisdictions. The other 35% of the population lives throughout Wasco County on 99% of the land. The unincorporated parts literally cover 99% of the land mass, 2,400 square miles of Wasco County. Now, the county comprehensive plan identifies rural service areas or rural service centers. And I think those are our best opportunity outside of the incorporated cities to develop property. If we can change the zoning where possible in those areas and add to the infrastructure in
10
those
seconds.
areas, it's our best opportunity.
Okay. So, yeah, so I'll lay that down. Yeah.
I started.
We don't want
What's the one difficult decision you believe that the county will face the next 2 years, and how would you approach making that decision?
It's a tough question right there. But you know, I think one of the things that we need to focus on is bringing businesses to Wasco County that want to do business in Wasco County. We need to create jobs. We need to create jobs that are going to be paying livable wages, that can be able to support our small businesses within our communities. You know, it's something that we really got to partner with. And I work with people on a day-to-day basis, and I create relationships. And you know, one of the things that you got to do is you got to go out there and you got to find the people that want to grow and want to start their, you know, their next journey. And, you know, I think that is something that I could bring to the table as far as
10 seconds.
generating some, man, that goes quick, doesn't it? All right, well, businesses, bring businesses to Wasco.
John's right, it is a difficult question, and the questions that have come out tonight shows that there's a lot of challenges facing Wasco County. We've got infrastructure issues, we have wildfire resilience that's needed, like safety, affordable housing. And so I think the biggest decision that the county, the toughest decision is gonna have to make is how to prioritize where to put its support and its time and its effort and its money. I think we do have investments money available to help with getting certain projects either over the starting line or the finish line. And I think that the way that you make those kinds of decisions is that you talk to the subject matter experts, you get the input of the public and the people that are experiencing those issues, and then you decide how do we,
10
and you have a
seconds.
conversation with all of the partners and the various perspectives so that you make sure that you're making a well-rounded decision when you make.
No one running for this office should be under the illusion that difficult decisions only occur every few years. I think if you ask your current commissioners, it probably happen every Wednesday that they meet. Anyone who's ever served on an elected board understands that many, if not most, are difficult at some level. There are many issues now and in the future that will be difficult, but not all of them involve the potential for loss of life and loss of property. The wildfire situation is only going to get worse, and it potentially impacts every single citizen in Wasco County. It's not unreasonable to see a future where large numbers of properties in Wasco County cannot get fire insurance for their homes and properties. The current Wasco County Community Wildfire Protection Plan has an extensive list of recommendations. They won't be easy and they won't be quick, but Wasco County needs to find a way forward on how to fund those.
I believe one of the biggest challenges we will face is it's really trying to figure out how growth aligns with livability in our community. Because just as all of my counterparts have said today, we have a lot of challenges in Wasco County right now that we're facing. What do we do with our Google funds? Do we expand our data centers? What do we do with our wildfire preparation? These are all challenges that aren't going to go away anytime soon. And come January, when someone takes office, there's going to be new challenges. But I think rest assured with me in the position, I have a long history of making hard and difficult decisions. I work at Northport. It's always a hard and difficult decision. So again, I think balancing growth with livability.
Okay. All right, it's your final question, and that is share any final thoughts you have. Wrap it up. Tell what you want.
So thank you for being here tonight. As your questions highlight, there are a lot of challenges facing Wasco County. And those challenges need to have practical solutions. They need to have partners that are strong partnerships, and they need to have people that are ready to get the work done. During my years as clerk, I managed complex systems. I ended up building trust in communities. And I made decisions that put public service first. And I can't emphasize that enough. We served the public, and that was the forefront of every decision that we made. As commissioner, my priorities are clear: investment in infrastructure, strengthen emergency preparedness, be responsible with your budgeting, and work with partners to ensure that there's expansion to housing and economic opportunities. So since I have 10 seconds left, I'll just say, vote for Lisa Gambee. Thank you.
She's tough. We know what we can accomplish when we work together. We fought fires together, we fought floods together. We had the highest unemployment in the United States at one time. And we fought that and we won and we beat it. We rid down the downtown. The evidence of working together is all around us. We just have to look. This position is nonpartisan for a reason. And you deserve a truly nonpartisan county commissioner. I served 14 years in an elected office as a nonpartisan mayor and councilor. I served as president of the chamber. I was appointed to the Port Commission. You know me, and I know you. I worked on both sides of the table as an elected official, and I worked on the other side as a county administrator. I understand how the process works from both viewpoints.
10 seconds.
I appreciate your support. Thank you.
I am a single mom raising 2 children in our community. I'm invested. I have been invested. I've been a public servant for close to 15 years. I coach your kids in soccer. I sit on multiple boards in your community that bring you the services that you rely on and the fun and activities that you want to experience day to day. If you want someone to be a leader in this position, you're looking at it right now. So I'd appreciate your vote for Wasco County Commissioner Position 1, Nicole Beichler.
All right. Well, I get the last word. That was by design, actually. But so I've worked in this community and I show up and I volunteer. I volunteered for years. I've coached over 20 teams, whether it be in basketball, football, baseball. I show up at cleanups. I've been on multiple boards. And the one thing that I've learned when I started working with politics is people in this community, in this county, didn't know each other. And it just blew my mind where people at the school board didn't know people at the chamber, and people at the chambers sometimes didn't know some of the people that were in the legislature. And well, not even actually, I take that part back. Yeah. But there was a disconnect. So there was a disconnect, and I have connected with a lot of people in a lot of different groups, and I ask for your vote. John Grant, thank you.
Right, big applause. Position number 2, please, or number 3, please stand up. Seem like, come on down. You should know that because they're including the same office with the different aspect of it, they're gonna get the same questions over again. So they had a chance to study out, these better be better answers. No pressure.
Well, same answer.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. All right. We'll start with your opening statement. Introduce yourself and share why you are running for Wasco County Commissioner.
Good evening. Thanks for everybody showing up. I think it's fantastic. My name is Dick Schaffeld. I am a business owner for 37 years. I raised my family here. Biggest thing I want to do, guys, this community, this county, is that we supported me in 30 years. I just want a chance to give back and get in and some common sense opinions on what's going on. Thank you.
Well, my name's Mike Urness, and a long time ago, I graduated from Oregon State University with a degree in economics and came back home to marry my wife, who currently helps manage her family's farm and ranch. And I have 2 kids that live here in the Dells, and I'm a 3rd generation owner operator of Seeger Motor Company, and we're going to be celebrating our 80th anniversary business in our community this June. I came to run for commissioner after seeing Google come in and get a number of breaks and whatnot. And I soon realized that my concern changed to how the money that we were going to get from tax revenue was going to be spent. And we just got $9.8 million in their first payment. And I think the priorities can be filtered out a little bit differently than what they currently are. Thank you.
I'm Bill Brady. I'm running for re-election to position number 3. Since starting the election, I have knocked on personally 500 doors and talked to 300 people in the Dells in Wasco County, asking them, what is it that you love about here that we need to protect and what are your concerns? Top of the list are housing, jobs, mental health, and homelessness. I grew up here in the Dells, and I'm very grateful for this community that nurtured me and made me who I am. Not nostalgic about it, but that seemed different than when I was a child. Growing up here, went to school, went to the Dallas High School, went to Gonzaga before they learned how to play basketball, majored in physics, and then I entered the Jesuits trying to become a Catholic priest for 7 years. My mother knew that wasn't going to work, but it took me a while to figure it out. The woman I married wanted to be a Catholic missionary, so after our kids grew up, we went to Venezuela for 9 years. The common theme in all my life is I've had a good work that's enabled me to serve people, and that's why I want to run again.
Okay. Second question, we'll start with Mr. Wasco County is seeing significant new revenue from data centers and expiring tax agreements. What are your top priorities for how this funding should be used? How would you ensure it benefits the community long term?
Well, I believe that the potential tax revenue from Google, as well as other relatively new sources, need to have more focus on the long-term success of small to mid-sized business. We currently have a number of organizations that do a great job of raising money for a number of projects that fund things like low-income housing. I think the focus of this needs to focus more on creating a thriving business community that can provide living wage jobs so people can afford to buy a home, can afford to buy a car, and pay taxes to support all of these programs we currently have.
Yes, Wasco County is starting to receive revenue from the Google sites. And I agree with the idea to create an endowment for long-term growth. It's a smart idea, say for a rainy day. But I also see we have to balance that with the core goals of the county, which are services such as courts, county courts, public health, and mental health. Then from there, invest in smart investments that will increase industry, housing production. And third, come back and, yes, grow that endowment, because the Google revenue is going to depreciate, just like our computers depreciate. So it's not gonna be here forever, and it does make sense to make an endowment and plan for the future.
So the data centers, they are a necessary evil, in my opinion. The challenge I have when I started my business, I got no tax breaks. If you're gonna get a data center, why don't pay the same as everybody else? You know, right up front, then we can make the choice what to do with the money if we need to. That's my feeling. I think that there is, you know, there's a lot of things, places that we can build, we can do with that money. To me, you give a 3% tax every year on your property tax. To me, that Google money is like a windfall. Why can't we take that and do something very big with it? Maybe take some of that money and go out to the other parts of this county and the fire departments and things like that are having problems with small communities. You know, you're gonna give money away if that's what you wanna call it. Maybe give it to them. Right? There's gotta be a way to help out the fire
10
departments,
seconds.
the EMTs and things like that. That's where I think you ought to go with that money.
Okay, we pass that down to Mr. Brady, and he will start a very similar question here. Do you support continued expansion of data centers in Wasco County, including new construction and related power infrastructure? Why or why not? And what limits, if any, would you support?
As I mentioned, I majored in physics in college. So I look at AI and data centers from a science and technical perspective. First, let me talk about water. Whether or not Google is here or not, we need to do the right thing and expand our reservoirs. This little minted snowpack, the very little snowpack we have this year, is a sign of things to come. Snowpack is the main reservoir for our water, and we're going to lose it, so we need to increase our reservoir. Industry experts say that electricity is going to be the limiting factor on data center expansion. Right now, Google is actually shutting down their first center. They're probably going to rebuild it, refurbish it with new equipment, which is going to take more electricity. So I support a state level control on data centers until we can build up an electricity. Otherwise, we're going to see rolling blackouts like they have in California. We don't need to wait for a crisis. We can really live inside now.
No, it's you go this way, round and round.
Okay, down and around. Okay, and that question was, do you support the continued expansion of the data centers in the county?
Right. Yep.
I think I touched on that a little bit ago. If we are going to expand, which I don't think it's really a good idea, I think there's a better way to expand. I think something would employ people with a wage that can support a family and build on the family, like maybe a big supermarket. Or how about an indoor swimming pool instead of a, you know, one that's not covered, you know, a huge one, make it a big one, you know, that you can use for, you know, 12 months out of the year. You can have parties at it, you know, you could have this at the swimming pool, you know, make it big enough, you know, it was a good deal, make it regulation size. I think that's something that we could invest in. Got off track of that a little bit, maybe, make it, you know.
10 seconds.
If the data centers are going to be here back to that, or regardless who it is, pay the taxes up front. Be accountable to the people.
Time.
Well, I would say that we need to hit the pause button on the data centers. These data centers are increasing electricity costs by passing infrastructure costs through to ratepayers, obviously increasing your bill. Water resources obviously are becoming limited in our county, and we're going to get a real test this summer with, you know, wells and water resources drying up, and this is going to put a stress on that. And we're kind of going to the Las Vegas of how long is data center going to be a viable business. Last February, SpaceX announced that they were going to develop these data centers in space, which would make ones on the planet Earth obsolete.
The other direction, he gets to start this way. All right, here we go. Affordable and workforce housing continues to be a challenge. What specific actions would you take at the county level to increase
housing availability.
I think a big thing that I think would help the housing is get control on the permits and the red tape that they have to go through to try to build something. Try to be workable with these guys. I don't think the county is real workable, and I don't know where to say it. I just think it should be a lot easier to be able to go in and get permits in a timely fashion and build something. You know, carpenters, you know, contractors, they come in, they want to do something. And if it benefits the city too, like sewers, storm drains and things like that, you need to put it in anyway. So why try to make contractors do that? Why don't you step up and do it yourself as a county? You know, it needs to be done. So I think that's what it needs to be. I think it needs to be, make it less expensive and easier to get permits and stuff and work with them.
Well, I think we need to hit the pause button again to look at the data being put forth from a resource I've looked up called Commercial Realty Advisors, who actually have the listing for the Basalt Commons. That's the project that's currently being proposed. And this entity is actually projecting a population decrease from the 2020 census data to 2029. Our residents are going to drop by 1,375 residents within a 5-mile radius. So we're looking at a declining population. They are also looking at a negative projected loss of 522 households. So their data tells me we don't need to go overboard on more housing availability, but less.
10 seconds.
We have another 78 unit going on in the Westgate site. Why are we subsidizing housing in a declining market?
As others said, housing is expensive to build and it's hard to get the land to do that. I'm chairman of the Mid-Columbia Housing Authority, which is building 200 low-income housing units here in the region. I encourage you to go to my website, philbrady.com, if only to look at the video about Mariposa Village and see that, yes, we can do great things in the gorge. It's an amazing site. The video is incredible. Just watch it to make yourself feel good. One lesson that I've learned from my first term is to be ready when opportunity comes. That's how we got the annex going. When the state said, okay, we're going to do turnkey projects, Wasco County, McCack specifically, was ready, had identified the hotel and was ready to be first in line. I hear things shifting in policy at the federal and state level, and I want us to be ready when that opportunity comes with the plan ready to put it into action.
Okay, now Mr. Urness gets to start this one. That is, what is one difficult decision you believe the county is going to be facing in the next few years, and how would you approach making that decision? This is a hard question, okay?
Yeah, well, one of our news outlets recently reported the annual expense for affordable housing subsidies costs $750,000 per month. Possible changes in city, state, and federal administrations may reduce or stop these subsidies altogether in the near future. Expanding these subsidies in a declining market and the risk of losing some or all of these subsidies is not something to be taken lightly. Is the city and the county going to pick up the bill if these subsidies go away at $750,000 a month? I don't think so.
My turn for which question now?
That's that question, the tough question. What's the difficult decision and what are you going to do about it?
Let me give you a real example. The proposed solar project on Juniper Flats. This is a tough decision because it fits on one side landowners' rights to make a profit on their land and community wanting to maintain and conserve their environment. When I was invited to go out and talk with the opposition group, and I didn't duck it, I went out to listen to what they said, but then they asked me to talk. I didn't take one side, trying to figure out which would give me the votes. Instead, I talked about fairness. My understanding of what makes a fair decision is first it follows the rule, and the rule is fair if I would agree to that rule if I didn't know if the rule was in my favor or against me. I didn't know if I was in a strong position or weak position in the group, then that's a fair rule. That's what you can expect from me. I will follow the rules and I will be able to give reasons for what I do.
Question is, what is the one difficult decision you believe the county will face in the next few years, and how would you approach making that decision? You know, I guess I don't know if it's gonna answer this, but I cannot imagine what the county's doing with these big projects. How are they going to maintain them? Who's gonna maintain them? When they turn out to be just county projects, the county property? Where's that money gonna come from? Who's gonna maintain it? Are they just gonna keep hiring people to maintain these projects if they keep going? I don't think the county needs to be in the banking business, and I don't think they need to be in the real estate business. I don't know if that answers that question, but that's my opinion.
Okay, so pass it all the way down, and this is the final question. Just get to Charity, final thoughts. Make any please. Wrap it up.
The incumbent advantage is really your advantage. Because you get to judge me not by what I say tonight, but what I have done. One of the things I've done a lot is sit in meetings, and I'm good at it. Because meetings and board work has a lot to do with being a teacher. I have a lot of success because I know how to strategize within the meeting. I know how to be effective. The other thing I do is go to where the problem is. Keeping the clinic open in Moffett is one of the big successes from the last 3 years. I jumped in, not because it was my responsibility, but because I knew that would devastate South Wasco County if it failed. I jumped in, helped reorganize the board, brought in a new chair, helped bring in several $100,000 of bridge resources, and now it's still open 5 days a week, same day appointments. My wife is the person who, after Venezuela, brought me back home. I'm here because I love this community and I want to keep serving.
Mr. Sheffield?
You know, I guess I can say is, if you're happy with what's going on, then vote the way it is. If you're not, I think you gotta vote to change. That's the big thing I see. There's a lot of things. It's a big county. I think the whole county is in need. I think we ought to treat the whole county. I think I heard earlier that if the money goes from where the actual place that, how did they put it? Like South County doing the solar deal, I guess that money is supposed to go to that community. Is that, I guess if that's really the way it worked, it'd be great. But I think it's county to county, and I think you got to distribute the money and help the people that need help. You know, don't make it so hard. Just help them out. Thank you. Vote for what you need to.
Well, it's pretty obvious. We need to work at expanding our commercial business opportunities in our area. We need to provide living wage jobs that allow people to buy homes and pay taxes. Long-term success is not achieved by subsidized housing that costs taxpayers money. Success is had by providing good living wage jobs. We can throw money at problems that never go away, or we can fix them. And that's what I intend to do. I'm Mike Urness. Thank you for your time.
Applause, please. Before we finish, one more things, want to thank everybody who was part of this, and you can help because just a few people said all this up. You help go a few chairs away and make it very light work for everybody before you go. You participated in democracy tonight. You did it right. Thank you for being good, great audience.